I like rhythm games. And when I say this, I mean I really like rhythm games. So when I figured this out, one of my two brain cells was like, what if we played every rhythm game? And then my other brain cell was like, better idea. What if we made a video about ranking every single rhythm game? Hello, heralds, and welcome to The Harbinger. I'm your host, PVZ, The Harbinger, here today to start ranking every single rhythm game that exists. But PV, you say, this video is only, enter video length here, minutes long. How can you be ranking every rhythm game in that short of time? Well, imaginary person I made up for this transition, I'm not. This is going to be the start of, hopefully, a long series of videos where I will be ranking every single rhythm game. This series format will let me rank not only future games, but past games I wouldn't have been able to rank in just one singular long video. But you didn't come here to hear me talk about my future plans for this little project. No, you're here so you can hear me dunk on your favorite rhythm game, so that you can comment down below and call me a So, without further ado, let's begin this tier list by explaining how I'm going to be ranking these games. I'll be looking at three main points. First is gameplay, which is pretty self-explanatory. The mechanics of the game, what makes it unique, things like that. The second is story, or motivation, which is basically the reason why you're going to play the game. More than just, I want to get a high score. And last, and most important, the music. Then I'll be putting the game in a tier list ranging from S to F. And before anyone says anything, I know that tier lists are supposed to have ranks within tiers, but honestly, there's just too many games, and I don't feel like doing all that. Now we can begin the series of ranking every single rhythm game. And we'll start with one of the biggest rhythm games ever made. A rhythm game so popular, it's practically everywhere. That being Okay, I might have over exaggerated this a bit, but to be fair, is that like every Dave and Buster's? And those are practically all around the world. So, cut me some slack. I mean, Music Tiles is barely even a rhythm game. And the only reason I'm counting it is because it's one of the first rhythm games I've played, so it holds a special place in my heart. And because of that, I'm gonna make fun of how bad it is. So there's a lot of different versions of this game. And trust me, I had like 20 different ones on my iPad as a kid. But the idea is basically the same throughout. Press the tiles to the music. It's pretty simple, just tap one of the four tiles, or two of the four, three or four, whatever, as they appear on your screen. When you click on a tile, it plays a note from the song. Tap it at the right time and get more points. That last part kind of depends on the specific game. Sometimes it's different, sometimes you just gotta tap it. Doesn't matter with the order, it just appears to the music. I don't know, it's kind of weird, and there's a lot of different versions, so it's kind of hard just generalizing every single thing into one. But I'm doing that because I'm not going to rank every single one of these games because there's a lot of them. So the gameplay is pretty basic, but for a mobile game, it's fine. And in the grand scheme of rhythm games, it's just kind of bland and boring. In terms of story, there is no story, which is fine because it's just a game you play on your phone when you're bored. So it doesn't really need a story. And in terms of music, the game usually doesn't really have their own selection of music. It's mainly just popular songs and pop culture. So nothing new or interesting. You can't really rank that because that's kind of your own musical taste and isn't really a generalization of good or bad. So, where does this game rank on our list? Considering it has basic gameplays, no story, and the most generic music that you can think of, I don't think I can rank this any higher than C. With our very first game out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to a real rhythm game. One that I think most people actually know, that blew up a few years ago, but hasn't been heard of since. That being If you don't know Friday Night Funkin', you must have been sleeping on the rock during the 2020s. Because this game blew up. Mainly because a lot of people started making their own mods for it. I, of course, can't rank every single mod, because, come on, there's just way too many. Honestly, most of them would go in F tier anyways. So I'm just gonna group everything all together. The gameplay is a little too simple and repetitive for my tastes. Basically, it's a duet. You watch the opponent play a part of the song, and then you repeat it. And I mean, that makes it sound like it's competitive against an actual person, but it's not. It's just pre-programmed songs. And it's not exactly the same as what they played, but it basically is. Each level is split up into usually about 3 songs. The way you beat a level is by surviving each song. You have a little health bar at the bottom, and if it gets all the way to the end, you die. The big problem I have with it is, like I said, it gets repetitive after a while, which isn't necessarily the game's fault, but it feels like too much of the same thing over and over again. There's like not really any other mechanics besides hitting the arrows, and it leads to a lot of the harder parts just being button mashing, which I'm just not a big fan of. But then there's the mods, and they carry this game hard. And before I go in talking about the mods, I know there is a weekend that came up recently. Uh, to be honest, I wrote the script before it, and hence why the intro was no one's heard of it. Because I mean, they went silent for like 4 years before they released something else. I know that there's a little bit more to the game, but it's essentially still the same. Anyways, over to the mods. I think the mods make the gameplay a little bit better because it's not just the same thing over and over again. Most mods add a variety of new types of arrows or mechanics that spice up the gameplay a lot, and I think that these little mechanics, if they were in the base game, it mechanic wise, it would be a lot better. The story of Friday Night Funkin' is also just kind of there, but it's not very prominent. The more recent few weeks or weekend are a little bit better at telling a story, but overall it's just alright. The early levels have some lore to them, but it's not very cohesive unless you really look into it, and later ones usually just have some small plot that revolves around a rap battle. I mean, I can think of the senpai wanted the girlfriend. I mean, that's about it. The more recent weekend, he was trying to get away from the 2 people, and then uh, the Newgrounds guy, he just didn't like them being there. So I mean, it's there, but it's just like not really satisfying, and you don't really care all that much. The mods also usually have their own story, but most of the time it just comes down to them beatboxing. That's legitimately most of the stories and basically every single mod there is. The music is good, but it's not good enough. Songs in the same week often get mixed together in my head because songs are supposed to sound similar, but they just end up sounding the exact same. The songs are alright. I mean, I'm not gonna put it in my playlist, I'm not gonna want to listen to it outside the game, but they're good when you listen to it in the game, and I have no problem listening to them. Mods also have the same problem with all sounding the same. A few mods do a good job of having distinct songs, but overall, most of them just kind of mud together. Overall, FNF is a hard game to rank. There are some really good mods that make the base game better, and it just makes the game overall better. But then there's a lot of bad mods that just make it a whole lot worse. So I'm just gonna say the mods cancel each other out, and we're gonna put FNF in C tier. Alright, time for the next game. Okay, what to pick? What to pick? I could do this one. Or this one. Definitely not this one. I want to save this one for a little later in the video. Ooh, I know. How about... Okay, I know Splatoon isn't a rhythm game. But if you played Splatoon 2 before, you know about this little mini game in the hub right over here. Wait, it's the wrong game. Hold on. Anyways, this mini game is something that most people, including myself, forget is in Splatoon 2. But it's technically a rhythm game, so I'm gonna count it. In terms of gameplay, it's pretty basic. Press the button that is on your screen to the beat as it shows up. It's as basic as a rhythm game can get. This game has legitimately no story, unless you count Splatoon as a story, but the rhythm game itself is just something that you play when you don't have Wi-Fi or don't want to pay $20 a year for Nintendo Online. And all the music is Splatoon music, so overall it's pretty good. So I'm gonna put this game in C tier. If this was actually a real full-on game, it could be better, but it's not, so in C it will go. This next game I've chosen is gonna be a little controversial, and you'll see in a minute why. Because this next game is... So I'm just gonna say it. I don't like Geometry Dash. I mean, overall, it's not a bad game. I remember it fondly from when I was a kid, but it's just not a real rhythm game. And more recently, I've come to realize that a lot of people actually agree with this, but I still think a lot of people are going to argue that it is a rhythm game. I mean, the gameplay is press to avoid obstacles, and it's not even really to the rhythm of the game. I mean, most of the time, I've played the game muted because I just don't see the point in having the music in it. You don't get a better score for timing. The only goal is to make it to the end. To me, that's not really rhythm. There's no rhythm elements to it, except the fact that it has music. And if you tap to the music, you kind of go along. But for the most part, if you're keeping a constant beat and tapping to the music, you're going to lose because that's not how the level is set up. Also, the only story is get to the end. I mean, I get it's a hard game, and that's the reason to play it, but I feel like that's just not really a good enough story to it. Music in this game is just kind of okay. I mean, the first song is memorable, but the rest are just completely forgettable. They're not bad, just kind of irrelevant. So with that being said, I'm going to put Geometry Dash in D tier. We got not really rhythm gameplay, no story, and just kind of not really that good of music. Alright, so if you're still watching and haven't given me hell in the comments for calling the bad rhythm game bad, then let's move on to our next rhythm game, Beat Saber. No fancy intro, because Beat Saber doesn't have one. Unlike our previous game, I really like Beat Saber. The gameplay is fun. Being a VR game, instead of pressing the buttons, you are the buttons. That sounded a lot cooler in my head. I'm lying, but anyways, the fact you have to move your arms makes the gameplay loop really entertaining because it's just pure muscle memory and it just gets the adrenaline pumping. You get such a flow state of moving to the rhythm and it's just amazing and it feels great. It sounds like I'm describing sex. I'm not having sex with my VR headset. So far, this game has the best gameplay, being simple enough for you to do and not get bored, yet complicated enough to feel like you're actually doing something. There is no real story in this game other than the campaign, which is just levels with difficulty modifiers. But not having any real story is fine, because the gameplay makes up for it. There's also the music. There are a number of playlists for music made for Beat Saber, and there's also quite a few playlists that you can buy by, I don't want to say actual artists, but non-video game artists that are in the game, but I don't really count those towards the song, again, like I said, for music tiles, because it's pop songs and not original songs for the game. But besides that, I think overall the music's pretty good. I like quite a bit of the songs, but there are also a lot of songs that just are insanely forgettable. But overall, I like the songs in Beat Saber. So Beat Saber has great gameplay, great music, but sadly no real story. So all I can really give it is a B tier. Anyways, moving on from Beat Saber, it's time to beat something else. That's right, folks. I'm playing... Um, I was told by my lawyer to cut that part of the video out, so, instead I'm gonna be talking about... BPM is an amazing game with an element we will see in a few more games, that being shoot to the beat. It's kind of hard to talk about the gameplay of BPM without relating it to the story, so I'm just gonna mix these two categories together because it's my series and I can do whatever the fuck I want. The gameplay is shoot, dash, and use abilities to the rhythm. There are multiple characters to choose from that you have to unlock by doing specific things. Each character has a unique set of abilities and a different gun. You unlock these abilities by beating the final boss on each of the different difficulties. To get to the final boss, you have to go through multiple levels of randomly generated dungeons. You get to new levels by defeating the boss in the previous level. On the way, there's multiple ways to level up, increase damage, increase precision, increase speed. You collect coins, you buy new guns, armor, typical dungeon crawler stuff. This gameplay is very fun. It being a dungeon crawler makes it very replayable. You're able to have a different experience on each run, and the change in difficulty and characters can really spice things up. But it does get a little bit old after you've beaten the game a good amount of time, and it's just not the same. The story is, like I said, to progress into the dungeon to beat the final boss. Not very complex and barely even a story, but hey, it's a reason to play the game. Now, the music in this game. The music is phenomenal. I mean, it's just addicting. It makes you want to die just so you can re-listen to the previous song. They are so good. I just want you to look up Into Asgard, or Machinations, or Flight of the Valkyrie. Hell, look up the entire playlist of BPM, Bullets Per Minute. These songs are all just so good. It is like an orgasm in your ear. They're just so beautiful. They're just outstanding. Honestly, if we were just basing this off songs alone, this would be S tier. They are amazing. Anyways, enough glazing. Overall, I think the gameplay is good but a little repetitive. And the music is really good. And the meaning is there, but isn't big past progression. So, with all that being said, I'm gonna put BPM, bullets per minute, in A tier. Alright, so these next two games I'm gonna group together because they're smaller games I found on free for Steam, and both of them aren't really good, so here you go. 2-for-1 deal. Okay, first up is
Yeah, look like gotta move, gotta shake.
honestly, Solace game on Steam, and it was tagged under Rhythm Games, so I played it for like 3 minutes, and it turns out it kind of has nothing to do with rhythm. Uh, maybe there is rhythm elements. Maybe I have to revisit this game, but from what I saw, it's not a rhythm game, so it's going in F tier. This next one is called Frame, but it doesn't have an intro, so I can't do the fancy edited thing. But pretend it was here. It's like an aim trainer and Beat Saber had a baby. But that baby was completely neglected. Instead of using his degree and getting a real job, he decided to go make videos on YouTube. Anyways, this game is just downright bad. The sensitivity sucks on it, and I don't even think you can change it. The music is all just like random SoundCloud artist songs, and then the story is non existent. But compared to the other one, it actually is a rhythm game. So let's go ahead and give it E. Honestly, it's been a year since I wrote that last part of the script, so I don't really remember where I was going after that. But let's go ahead and move on to the next game. That next game being the gameplay of this is pretty similar to BPM, where you shoot, dash, and reload to the beat, but instead of being a dungeon crawler, it's level based. To describe the mechanics of this game, it's really just BPM mixed with the new series of Doom games, where each level has arenas and maybe a few small puzzles, but the main focus is fight the demons to continue throughout the level. Much like Doom, this game has glory kills. They're not animated like Doom's, but basically when someone's low, you can glory kill them and get some health. The main cool mechanic of this game that kind of sets it apart from BPM or other shoot to the beat games is that it has a score multiplier. Basically, if you do everything to the beat, the score multiplier slowly goes up. And when it's maxed out at 16, the lyrics of the song kick in. Honestly, I really like this feature. Makes you really want to stay on beat because the music in this game is pretty good. Not really good enough for me to want to listen to it outside of the game, but it's good enough for me to just vibe out in the game. Other mechanics of this game include a bunch of guns that you can choose before you enter a level. It's eh. I just prefer the doom of switching to weapons when you need them, but the weapons aren't really different enough. Uh, they're fun, and I like how they all have kind of their different weaknesses and strengths, but meh. There's also like costumes that do different things. I bought this one because it's funny. Look at it. That's that's just such a silly little costume. The costumes are meh. They don't really change that much. They're basically just there, I guess. In terms of story, this game is the first game so far with an actual story. At the start of each level and at the end, you're told about the unknown and her journey throughout the rings of hell, where she's trying to escape, I think, or get her voice back. One of those. It's been a little while since I played, and I'm also pretty stupid. But it's enjoyable and exactly what you need in a rhythm game. A little bit of story there, a little bit of story here. Perfect. Overall, the mechanics are good. The music is good, and the story is good. So it's the perfect definition of A tier. Also, before we move on to the next game, I know there's a VR version of this game. I haven't played it yet, but when I do, I will be ranking that separately. The next game is actually a game I've already talked about on this channel, and it was actually my first real video. That game, of course, is... The last time I talked about this game, I was talking about how much I really enjoy it, and I just wanted more from the game because the developers actually got fired by Microsoft. But recently they got bought out by a different company. So my dream in that video came true after all. Anyways, the mechanics of Hi-Fi Rush are pretty good. You hit enemies to the beat of the song to deal damage. The better your combos, the more damage you do. There's quite a good amount to the game. Like, specific enemies have patterns where you can only hit them in specific spots or at specific times. Sometimes you can't dodge an enemy and you actually have to block. There's a bunch of different types of combos. There's a bunch of different types of chips that modify you in specific ways. Overall, I really like the mechanics of this game. It mixes up beat 'em up with rhythm very nicely, and it constantly adds new challenges and mechanics, so it doesn't feel like the same thing over and over again. The story is also perfect, and if you want to hear more on specifics on the story or mechanics, you can watch my original video. And yes, this is me trying to get more views on that specific video. But basically, the story follows our main character, Chai, trying to take down an evil corporation, which makes robots and stuff. The story is spread across each level. There's usually a few cutscenes throughout the levels, and mostly they're at the beginning and end. Alright, so you might be thinking, this game has good mechanics and a perfect story. That means it's gonna go in S tier, right? Well, it would go in S tier if there wasn't one massive problem. It's the music. You see, the music in this game is extremely forgettable. If I was given random songs and asked what game they were from, I would not be able to recognize a single Hi-Fi Rush song. And I don't mean the songs are bad, they're just very generic. Since the gameplay isn't really focused on the music itself, and you're more paying attention to the beat, you don't really hear the music, if that makes any sense. Hi-Fi Rush is so close to being S tier, but because of the music, I sadly have to put it in A tier. Alright, time for the penultimate rhythm game. If you don't know what penultimate is, read a book. This one is honestly one of my favorites, and also one of the weirdest. The game is... like I said, Trombone Champ is one of my favorite rhythm games. Not because it has the best mechanics or amazing music, but because it's just such a silly game. The mechanics are quite simple. You have this slider you can move up and down with your mouse, and you have to hit the notes as they appear on your screen. There's only taps and slides, so it does get a little boring, but I'm not really sure what else kind of notes they could put. But to be honest, the gameplay doesn't really get too repetitive because songs are so different from each other. It just doesn't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. I do have one complaint about the mechanics, and I don't know if it's just a skill issue or something, but this game genuinely hurts to play. The first few levels are fine, but the harder levels legitimately murder my fingers. Again, it might be a skill issue, but it's still something I'm going to consider in the evaluation. The story is pretty weird because it's not told in a typical linear fashion, but basically the whole game revolves around you collecting points by completing songs. Then you can use those points to go gambling! Yes, gambling! Hell yeah, gambling! No, you use those points to buy card packs, and you have to collect specific cards to summon evil Mozart, who you have to defeat to become the trombone champ. Along the way, you eat hot dogs and meet baboons. Like I said, silly story, but it's actually quite charming, and I really like it. The songs in this game are mainly public domain songs or remixes of older songs. Songs like Beethoven or Mozart or Happy Birthday or Coming Round the Mountain. Uh, Music like that. There are a few original songs, but not that many. Overall, Trombone Champ is good. It has painful mechanics, a funny and charming story, but sadly not very good music. So I'm gonna put Trombone Champ in B tier. Alright, time for the last game. The entire video has been leading up to this moment. And just for that, I've saved the best game for last. So, drumroll please. The last game is Unbeatable White Label. Is technically a demo for Unbeatable, but it's also its own game. And until the main game comes out, I'm just gonna rank this because it kind of really is its own game. The mechanics of this game are literally perfect. Each song is broken up into 2 rows of notes. Obviously, you have to click to the corresponding note as it appears. There are a wide variety of notes that make the gameplay really fun. There's notes you have to hit multiple times. There's notes that you have to avoid. There's notes that you have to hold. And a few more. But the really fun part about these notes is how they work together and overlap. In the harder levels, you don't just get one note at a time, you get multiple types of notes at the exact same time, and you have to hit them accordingly to the song. And it just feels really good and satisfying to play the game. Besides those notes, there's also a camera angle to say. There's 2 sides of the board, and throughout the song, you'll move between the 2 sides. It's not really a mechanic to say, but it kind of is. It does exactly what a rhythm game should do, and it plays with your mind. You're not really thinking too hard about swapping sides, but it really does kind of mess with your head a little bit, and I just think that is perfect for a rhythm game. And it makes it so that it's not as boring, even though it's not boring without it. It adds so much. It's great. Obviously, like these types of rhythm games, if you miss a beat or click when you're not supposed to, you have a little life that will slowly decrease. If it decreases all the way, you lose. And the better you are at timing your hits, the better score you get. So overall, the mechanics are simple enough to where it doesn't feel overwhelming, yet complex enough to make it not boring, and the story behind the game is just beautiful. There isn't a lot, but at the start of a few songs, there's a little cutscene. And honestly, I can't tell if these little stories in the game are actual personal anecdotes or just made up for the game. But they're just wonderful. It's literally a perfect story for a rhythm game. You get the start of the cutscene when you start a song, and the end of the cutscene when you finish it. And the music in this game is also just beautiful. I mean, every one of the base game's songs is so good. I highly recommend checking them out. Even the songs I didn't like at first has easily become one of my favorite songs of all time. This game is literally the entire reason why I'm starting this series. When I'm ranking games, I'm literally ranking them based on how they compare to Unbeatable White Label. This is literally my favorite rhythm game of all time. It's the reason why I'm publishing this video today. Uh, because the whole game is supposed to release the day I upload this, which is December 9th. And honestly, I'm a little scared. I'm scared that the whole game isn't going to be as good as this. While I was doing research for the game, I found the synopsis of the story. I found out that the real story is going to be about how music is outlawed, and this band basically is protesting the fact by just making music. And for some reason, that just didn't sit right with me. And I didn't know why. It wasn't because the idea itself was bad, it is fine to me, but I realized I didn't like the story because it wasn't real. The reason why I like White Label so much is because the antidotes and the story in it feel real. They feel like an actual story told by an actual person, not just a fabrication made for the game. And to me, that just made it feel less special. But I'm sure the main game will be great. But I'm just a little worried. I mean, this game is the reason why I wanted to make this video. The reason why I want to go on this journey to rank every single rhythm game. This entire video is just to put White Label in S tier and just pay homage to my favorite rhythm game. I mean, even if I don't get every game, even if I don't get any views, even if anything happens, I just wanted to talk about how much I like this game and how much I overall love rhythm games. But you didn't come here to hear me talk about all this crap. Obviously, Unbeatable White Label is going in S tier. And with that being said, that is the end of this video. And if you're still watching, I plan to continue this series, even if it doesn't get views or if no one likes it. I'm gonna do this because I genuinely want to play every rhythm game. It's just a little fun personal challenge of mine. I already have a few games that I'm gonna play in the future, but I don't really have enough for a full-on video. So I would really appreciate some help in the comments, some recommendations of games that I didn't cover in this video that you really want me to cover. I know for a fact I need to play like Osu and Rhythm Haven. Rhythm Heaven? One of those two. I need to play those. But just let me know games that you think I should play, even if you don't think they're good games. Leave them down in the comments below. Also, let me know about the ranking system. Uh, I feel like it's pretty simple. But if you don't like it, or if you think I should change it, maybe add in between tiers or something like that, let me know. Because I mean, the ranking, it's kind of weird, and I might have to make a full video explaining it if people end up liking this. But I don't know. It's just I get it. Other people might not get it, so I understand if it's difficult to understand. And that's about everything I have to cover. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, share, subscribe. You know the deal. Basic YouTuber lingo. That's about it for this video. Remember to reap what you sow, and bye bye.